We are the ones who don't know what we're fighting for. Give us a gun and send us all off to war. We are the ones who grow up in violent homes. We are the ones who don't know what's right or wrong. I know. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No more. We are the ones who don't know why we're losing score. Give them a badge so they could send us to the morgue. We are the ones who are scared to walk out the door. We are the ones who don't know what we're dying for. I know. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck now. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No more. Get off his fucking neck. Oh, that makes you know he can't fucking breathe. So that makes you know we are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck now. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No more.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of I'm No Joe, your home for all things combat sports and the place where every armchair quarterback can feel like Ben Bronco. The views and opinions presented on the I'm No Joe channel belong solely to the person expressing them, no one else. If we say it, that means we meant it. That being said, this show does contain adult themes, adult content, and general shit that you shouldn't be letting your kids intake. Be advised, viewer discretion is recommended. Proceed at your own risk. You've been warned. If you're living your best life, hydrated, staying in your lane, thriving, you found your way to the I'm No Joe podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of appropriate ages, to the latest episode of the I'm No Joe podcast. I am your based host, The Meter. The Meter does many things if you're nasty. Welcome to the I'm No Joe podcast, a show where every armchair quarterback can feel like Eddie Bravo. Today, as like most days, I have got this glorious panel here with me to break down all the shit talking and shenanigans, get into all the fight announcement and fuckery that has fallen through the punchy kicky pipelines since we saw you wonderful folks last. So before we get into all of the goodness, first and foremost, gentlemen, how the fuck are you doing over there?
Doing pretty fucking good. Life's been kicking the ass a little bit. Been tired, just like I know you boys have been fucking under the weather and shit like that. We're here. We got some decent fights this weekend. I'm for it.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, that's over. We're doing all right. There's a card to talk about this weekend. It's a fight night card, and to their credit, this is probably one of the better fight night cards we've seen in a while. At least one that has implications into divisions where things actually might matter. There's a couple of last minute changes, but that's fucking UFC as a whole. So here we fucking are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we like to do around here to kick things off, we're going to start with a little bit of news and recent events, fight announcements that have been confirmed, rumors that have been put to paper and definitized, things that we feel are relevant to your punchy kicking knowledge in this fun little world that we live in. So, starting off, just came down the pipeline, an hour and a half ago. We found out that the big BKFC card this weekend has taken a hit to the co-main event. Big Ben Rothwell has officially come down sick and has been pulled from the fight at the last minute. David Feldman said that they tried to find a last minute replacement and could not. So instead, they're just going to rebook this fight for a big BKFC card they're putting together in February and keep the title on the line between these two guys potentially. So sucks that he fell out. Sucks the way that Todd fucking Duffy is handling the situation. Like he was fucking relevant besides this anyways, but it's good to see that at least they're going to keep things where they should be and try and rebook the fight and give those boys another crack at what could be a very eventful evening. So there is that. But 'tis the season. The bug is going around. We got another one here. Mirzakhanov, I believe is how they pronounce his last name, is officially out as well. Sick, originally going to fight this weekend. Now on short notice replacement, Anthony Smith has stepped up to take on Khalil Roundtree, and they are pushing that fight back to next weekend to give those boys an extra week to accommodate. Still going to be at light heavyweight, though. I like Khalil Roundtree at 205. Man, I give Smith credit for stepping up on short notice, but this might be one of those that does not play out well for him, especially if the Khalil Roundtree we have seen with that Tiger Muay Thai style shows up ready to fucking stand bladed and go ham. Man, that's a bad matchup for Anthony Smith. I'm calling it right fucking now, but we'll see a little bit more about that as we get a little closer to next week, start to see a little more press for it, hopefully. As if that wasn't enough fun, we got another couple of announcements in regards to next weekend's UFC card. Excuse me. The first one, I talked about this a couple months back when they first announced the signing. Well, we've got it now. The debut of Rayan dos Santos, the Invicta champion that has been scooped up by the UFC, now officially making her debut next weekend against Talita Alencar. Interesting matchup. I'm very curious to see what dos Santos can do up at the UFC level. And since they're giving her Alencar, they're not going to throw her right to the wolves. It seems like they're going to give her a chance to kind of shine here. And I think that's going to be an interesting matchup next weekend. We'll hope that that one plays out. Knock on wood, nothing happens between now and then in that situation. Stepping forward a little bit here, January 18th, the One Fight Night 18, ironically, we'll see the second cross-discipline, same organization move here. Just last month, we were talking about the 135-pound title challenger in Fabricio D'Andrade going over to fight in the one kickboxing world. Well, didn't go so well for him as we kind of talked about it. Looked like it wasn't going to. Well, not to be outdone, John Lineker, the current ONE FC bantamweight champion, the one who took the belt from Fabricio D'Andrade, is now going to make his way over into the Muay Thai side of ONE FC, taking on Liam Harrison, who is a Muay Thai and kickboxing fighter, not an MMA fighter at all. So this, just as much as D'Andrade's foray into the kickboxing world, this in the Muay Thai sense is a very equilateral move, in my opinion, for Lineker. And if he can make his way through Liam Harrison, who is generally accredited across the fucking globe, and come out smiling on the other side with a W, he will absolutely have a whole nother range of nene to hang over Fabricio de Andrade's head over in ONE FC. Not to mention, we've seen what John Lineker can do in the MMA world. They don't call him hands of stone for nothing. Now we get to see what he can do in the Muay Thai world, where he has to be more mobile and he doesn't get that takedown advantage that he gets to enjoy in the MMA side of things. I'm fucking curious. I think it's going to be a fun little event to see either way. Speaking of the one side of things, though, just a couple weeks later, January 28th, on the One on Prime fight night, the return of the blonde one himself, Super Sage Northcutt, steps back into the ring, taking on legend Shinya Aoki in what feels very much like a send-off match for Aoki, and kind of a layup here for Sage Northcutt. They gave him a very easy fight that he walked right through when he came back in May. It doesn't seem like Shinya at this point in his career is really going to have too terribly much to offer Sage in terms of opposition, but it's still not going to be a full walk in the park. I'm kind of okay with it depending on how it plays out. Now, if Sage comes out there and just fucking slaughters Shinya, then I think we have to have a different conversation. But for right now, I think it's okay. I think it's going to play out all right, and I think it should be a fairly interesting matchup to see. Back over to the UFC side of things here. February 3rd, Roman Dolidze stepping back into the cage, finally taking on Nasruddin Imava for the main event of the February 3rd card. Hell of a fight night main event. Implications in the division. It's exactly what you like to see in matchmaking coming up from the UFC. The following week, back in the Apex, February 10th card has a couple of fights added to it here. The first one, Loma Lookboonmee stepping back in to take on Bruno Brazil in a very interesting matchup here. Rodolfo Vieira versus Armin Petrosian getting rebooked. Was originally supposed to take place down in Brazil last month, ended up not happening at the last minute. They did indeed rebook it. Now we know when. It is going on the February 10th card. So we're getting it in just a couple weeks. And then, excuse me, Dana White himself confirmed the main event for that February 10th card this week. Jack Hermanson versus Joe Pyfer. I don't like that matchup. I don't like it being a main event. I don't like Joe Pyfer. I don't like anything about that. That's all fucking bad in my opinion, but we can always hope something happens between now and then and they change that shit. We'll see. That being said, I've got to give the Randy Marsh Carrier Balls in a Wheelbarrow award for this week to Floyd fucking Mayweather. He might not be able to read, but that son of a bitch can negotiate a contract. He somehow has managed to finagle Allegiant Stadium Super Bowl Sunday to take on John Gotti III in a rematch that ended in laughably horrible controversy the first time they tried this match. There is no demand for this fight to begin with, but the fact that Floyd not only put it back together and has the balls to do it against the Super Bowl in Las Vegas in Allegiant Stadium. Wow. Wow.
Somebody's trying to see how much pull they really have.
Yeah, no shit. I give him credit that, you know, shooter's gonna shoot and Floyd is aiming for the goddamn stars. I feel like this one might be a little bit of too big of a bite for that tiny mouth of his, and this one is probably gonna fizzle out, I think, miserably, which will still be entertaining.
I think there's only one thing to say to that. That's a bold move, Cotton. We'll see how it plays out for him.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, I had to double check it and confirm it myself when I first saw the story, because I was like, ain't no way. Ain't no fucking way. No, yeah, he pulled it off. He got Allegiant Stadium for fucking Super Bowl Sunday. Oh, Floyd's gonna Floyd. That being said, that following week, February 17th, UFC 298 from Anaheim, California. Got a very interesting matchup added to it this week. Justin Tafa versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Tafa is on a fucking run lately. De Lima is starting to really be exposed for the can that we always kind of wondered if he was. Tafa can absolutely do good work here and get himself on a fucking fast track to the top if he does it right. If he does it right. That being said, we've got a couple of interesting pieces of news here from the PFL side of things from the last week. First and foremost, their Night of Champions went off last week. 6 millionaires crown. Ironically, I think 4 of the 6 of them had won titles previously, so this was their second or third time winning a PFL division. But the big one, the one that everyone is really predominantly talking about, was Olivier Aubin Mercier, OAM, the Canadian gangster, former UFC fighter turned PFL shining star, beat the dog shit out of Clay Collard like most of us said he was going to. Very emotional on the microphone afterwards. Said that he frankly wasn't sure about his future, that he was going to go spend some time with his family, talk to his team, take a little bit of time off, and then he would let everybody know what was going to be next, because PFL announced during that broadcast that their next intention is to make a PFL versus Bellator Night of Champions matchup in 2024. We'll talk about that more in just a second. But OAM said that, he didn't know what was next for him, that he's been through a lot lately, and frankly, he needs a little time, so we'll see. Well, it's been a week. We'll see has turned into we're done. OAM has officially retired from MMA after winning his second consecutive PFL title and $1 million. And, hats the fuck off to him. The gentleman made more than enough money to make sure that his family is set for life, and he's able to walk out of the sport forming complete sentences and tying his own shoes. You cannot be mad at that. Good on you, AM. Do your goddamn thing. Enjoy your fucking life, sir. That being said, that ties into what we were talking about a second ago here. PFL announced officially on that broadcast confirmation. PFL has officially acquired Bellator. They were purchased. What they intend to do is keep the two brands separate but fluid, is how they describe it. They want to leave Bellator operating the way Bellator does, keep PFL operating the way that PFL does in terms of seasons and tournaments and whatnot, allow Bellator rostered fighters to decide whether they want to stay in the Bellator style fight and fight 2 to 3 times a year over there, or they want to enter the season and go through the tournaments. Over on the PFL side, they are fluid, free to make either decision. And in the meantime, they want to make a champion versus champion night coming up in early 2024. Now, this causes a couple complications that we'll talk about more in just a minute, but it also gets very complicated when their 155-pound champion literally wins the belt, takes a week, and then decides to retire when 155 pounds is one of the hottest divisions in any organization in MMA on this planet, especially in this situation where you just acquired an entire new organization and plan to put champion versus champion, and your champion vacates the week after he wins as you're trying to put these matchups together. It gets kind of complicated. It gets real interesting, but good on OAM. So we'll see how things play out. That being said, PFL gonna PFL. They couldn't just leave things there. Excuse me. They also announced, in the process of absorbing Bellator, they are not, I repeat, not going to create the 2 possibly largest divisions that they could, because as of right now, PFL does not have a men's bantamweight or a men's middleweight. They have 170 pounds. They have 205 pounds. There is no 185-pound division. There's no 135-pound men's division in the PFL because they just didn't have the roster for it at that point. A little interesting that they're trying to do champion versus champion. Johnny Eblin and Patchy Mix, 2 of the biggest MMA stars on the planet, now have nowhere to go because they just don't have those divisions for them to compete with. It gets real interesting to see how that plays out. But I think the biggest announcement that PFL made on the week, realistically, was the fact that they have officially inked a multi-year extension deal with ESPN for broadcasting rights. So two things. One, this is going to mean that PFL is going to get marketed and promoted a hell of a lot more by ESPN. Bet your bottom dollar. But the other thing that this means, in my opinion at least, no confirmations officially, the UFC is going to look for a new broadcast partner, ASA fucking P. They were not happy to be sharing ESPN with PFL when PFL was nothing to them. Now that they've acquired Bellator and a whole fucking untapped wealth of Saudi money to help fund them and try and grow the brand and organization, it's going to get real interesting. It's going to get real fucking interesting. And with PFL now having multi-year extension with ESPN, I don't feel like Dana and the WME corporate conglomerate that are now handling Knockout or whatever the fuck they're calling the TKO bullshit ownership management of this side of things. I don't feel like that's going to want to play in the same sandbox anymore when Don Davis has taken every microphone opportunity in the last month to say we're trying to be the co-leader of combat sports with the UFC. They're literally trying to put themselves on the same platform. They're not. We all know that they are not, but that's the verbiage that they are using themselves. So all things being equal, I have a funny feeling we're going to see UFC find a new broadcast partner in 2024. That being said, a couple of not as fun things, unfortunately, to round out the news segment this week. First one, I guess it's not horrible, but it's not good. We got confirmation that Tony Ferguson's DUI charges have officially been dismissed as part of a plea bargain to him pleading guilty to, and I quote, wet, reckless driving upon a highway. He flipped his fucking truck drunk as shit and refused a breathalyzer. And they let him plead out on wet, reckless driving upon a highway. Between that, the David Goggins shit that Tony has been posting, I very much am getting the strong impression that 2 weeks from now is probably going to be the last time we see Tony Ferguson under a UFC label. Regardless of what he does going further, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last time we see Tony Ferguson strap up a UFC fight kit. I hope for his sake, he gets everything dialed the fuck back in and gets his shit back in order, because it's clearly all kinds of out of whack right now. But I think this is probably going to be the last time we see him wear a UFC kit. We'll see.
If he's lucky, that David Goggins shit will maybe set him straight, get him off the drinking and driving and all that other shit. But I mean, worst comes to worst, he's going to run him to death, and then we don't have to worry about him.
Well, that being said, excuse me. Last one here. I mentioned it a little while ago. TKO, Knockout, fucking shuffleboard, whatever the hell they want to call the shell game they're using for the quote-unquote merger of the WWE and UFC corporate company now that they have become, is officially now being challenged by a lawsuit stating that the UFC and WWE used quote-unquote sham sales tactics and presented false overinflated sales offers to drive out competitors to force this merger to essentially happen. Not good at all. We will see how that one plays out, but seeing as how the UFC has already got the class action lawsuit going against them, and that's not going well, already set for trial in April, this is not going to bode well either. And it looks like somebody brought receipts for this one from what I was reading. So we may have all sorts of upsets going on the UFC side of things in 2024. We'll see. That being said, excuse me. Unfortunately, we have gone yet another week where Dana White has still managed to somehow wriggle out of getting any actual real world punishment for openly slapping his wife multiple times down in Cabo San Lucas last New Year's. We are now almost at 1 full year with 0 fucking repercussions. So, no, Dana, as many times as you say it, having to live with the knowledge that it happened is not adequate punishment. And hopefully you do get yours, you bald fuckhead. That being said, either one of you gentlemen have anything in the news world I might have missed this week?
Not that I can think of offhand.
Nothing for me.
Good shit. Excuse me. That being said, that'll bring us to the point in the podcast here where if you're like me and certain other people here around, you might have been watching combat sports for a while. And if you've been watching it for a while, you tend to develop patterns and habits, and you start to know what you like to watch and when it comes on and how to consume it. And you inevitably develop a set of blinders, so to speak, to the MMA world. You're used to watching what you're watching, and inevitably it can cause you to lose the forest for the trees, as it were. Luckily for us, though, here on the I'm No Joe podcast, we have ourselves a bona fide young person who's able to go out there and just ever so delicately finger the pulse of the MMA world and keep us abreast of all the names that are going to be names before they are names in a little segment that we like to call Slows, Cans, and Contenders.
Appreciate you, brother. So I'm going to start out with the cans this weekend. Cody Brundage. I mean, we got to start off with him. Throwing him in the can. Surprised he's still in the UFC. I mean, he got a technical win in his last fight because of a disqualification due to elbow, but the dude has technically lost his last few fights. He's 2-4 in the UFC. I don't understand why he's still there, but you know, they need some people to get knocked out by people making their debuts, I suppose. That's kind of how I look at it this weekend. I think that's exactly what's going to happen to him. He's going to get knocked out by a kid that's making his debut and probably going to get cut, even if he's 29 himself. He's kind of young, could turn his shit around. Just hasn't been worth a damn. He's just got a little bit of ability to wrestle, but that's literally all we've seen from the kid. He goes in there and tries to take people down, hold them to the ground. Nothing exciting about him, so we got to throw him in the can. Yeah, Wellington Turman. I kind of like Wellington Turman as a fighter a little bit more than I would like Cody Brundage, but I mean, in all honesty, you kind of got to throw him in the can too. He's 3-5 so far in the UFC. Just been really back and forth. You know, lost his past couple fights to Andre Petrosky and Randy Brown. So to see how he does this weekend against this kid Jared Gooden. He looked pretty good in his debut, so we got a lot of finishing potential. I don't know how good that's going to go for Wellington, but had to throw him in the can, just being honest. And then got a couple fights that were thrown in there. Clay Guida versus Joaquim Silva. Now, I don't necessarily think the fight itself will be horrible. It could be exciting, you know, because Clay Guida's always been a tough fucking dude. He always goes out there and throws down. But, you know, Father Time's obviously catching up with him. It was great to fucking get to see him when we were all together in Kansas City. But he got the shit beat out of him. You know, it was an awesome moment. You know, walking out to some Foo Fighters. You know, it was great. But then he gets the shit kicked out of him. He's all bloodied up. It's not how you want to see the legends go out. You know, when it's their time, it's their time. It's getting to that point with Clay, and I just kind of feel that he's going to get the shit kicked out of him a little bit again. It's not necessarily that he's a bad fighter. It's just Father Time's caught up to him. Not looking forward to that fight. That's why I'm throwing it in the can. Don't want to continue to see legends get knocked out, get the shit beat out of them because their pride's too fucking strong. They just know when to, you know, call it quits. Kind of feel the same way with Misha Tate. You know, I've always rooted for the cupcake, but it's kind of the same thing. You're getting on in years. She hasn't fought in over a year because she's had some injuries and shit holding her back. I don't know what the point is, you know, like maybe for her own personal, it's that thing, the pride thing, hold on to this, just what they've done their whole fucking lives and they don't know what else to do kind of shit. You love it. So they still want to compete with it. But Even if Misha gets the win this weekend, I just what is there for her after that fact? Maybe a fun fight or something. I don't see her like climbing back up, making a real run at anything. So it just seems pointless. It kind of seems like you're beating a dead horse. So throwing her in the can this weekend as well, I just feel like these fighters need to call it quits. But the real fight that I think is just like the worst on the card, don't give a fuck at all. Puna Soriano versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Throwing this one in the trash can. And Stoltzfus, since the Contender Series, 1-4 in the UFC, the dude's just been literal trash. And Puna Soriano has been a back and forth fighter. He's had a couple of decent moments where he gets a fucking finish, but in all honesty, again, the dude's kind of a trash fighter. Like he's that kind of guy. He's either getting a finish against some low level fighter, or he gets finished himself by a mid level fighter. That's what we've seen from him. So throwing that fight in the can. As for contenders, we do have some exciting shit, in my opinion. The kid making his debut in the UFC in the light heavyweight division, Rodolfo Bellato. I'm excited about him. He was just on the Contender Series back in October. Got a fucking nice knockout. Working his way into the UFC, 10 finishes of his 11 wins, 27 years old. Kid's got a lot of knockout power. And the light heavyweight division is kind of one of the most boring divisions. So we need some like exciting prospects that got that finishing ability. Just going against Ihor Potieria. Dude's got some striking power himself, but hasn't done so hot since he's been in the UFC. So I'm looking forward to Bellato. He's probably going to have a pretty decent debut here. You got Zachary Reese, another kid making his debut against Cody Brundage, who I threw in the can there. This kid's 29, undefeated 6-0, all wins by finish, 4 of them by knockout, 1 on the Contender Series by a first round armbar. So he's also got the submission ability. Seems pretty well rounded. Just excited to see what that kid does, and damn sure think he's going to look good against Cody Brundage. So we'll see. Got Arman Tsarukyan. I still think this kid's a contender. Even if he loses this weekend to Dariush, he's still young as shit. That's the only guy he's lost to in the UFC really so far. Is Islam, the technical loss to Gamrot, but I thought that fight was really close last year. It could have gone either way. Judges, our judges. It was a really competitive, close fight. I think if Tsarukyan wins, especially he's in the top 5 at this point, had to throw him in the contender spot. And Sean Brady as well. He's probably going to bounce back and look really good this weekend. The first loss of his career to Bilal Muhammad. Kelvin Gastelum is a really fucking tough fighter, and it's a good name for him, to bounce back with. Kelvin's been rocky in his career lately. He looked good against Chris Curtis in his last fight, but I do feel like Brady comes out on top in this. It looks a lot better, and that'll push him fucking back up as well. Should get a top 10 fight after that fact. You got a couple fights that I'm lumping into the contender spot as a whole. Bobby Green versus Jalen Turner, the co-main event. Just exciting as hell. Whichever guy wins that, you fucking kind of get pushed up. I think Bobby Green, he wins. He's getting skyrocketed a little bit. Same if he would have beat Dan Hooker. And Jalen Turner will at least get a exciting fight after that if he comes in short notice and fucking beats Bobby Green. So it's good for either guy. It'll help push him up a little bit. And then bantamweight fight. Rob Font versus Davison Figueiredo. So Figueiredo's fucking debut here, going against one of the better boxers in the division with Rob Font, a guy that's going to fucking stand and strike, and Figueiredo likes to stand and strike. I think that power from Figueiredo is going to translate even though he's going up a weight class. And it's fucking exciting. I'm just excited to see that shit. I want to see Figueiredo go out here, knock out Rob Font. Even though I love Rob, this is how I want to see it play out. And then go fucking knock out Sean O'Malley later this year. Well, Cheeto will probably do it anyways. But if he doesn't, somehow, the motherfucker, Sean O'Malley wins, it'd be a fun way to do it.
So,
somebody's got to knock him out, right?
I'm sorry to interrupt here, But are you done pouring sugar on yourself? Is that what I just heard?
Oh no, I'll still have fun and joke around with that. You know, it's a fun little meme thing, but
Yeah, no, yeah. Fun my ass. You've had enough
yeah,
of sugar show finally. You figured it out.
I just the realistic guys that are good at fighting compared to a clown. You know, just is what it is there. Well, that's all I got. I'd love to hear what you boys got for your cans and contenders.
All right. First off, immediate can. First fight of the night. Veronica Hardy. I don't give a fuck who your husband is, albeit I do like Dan Hardy. And I do like the reason that he is no longer with the fucking UFC or with their commentating or anything like that. Just because your fucking husband was a good fighter doesn't mean you are. You're half baked at best. Like, the best thing your husband could do, get you fucking pregnant and get you out of the game. You don't belong here. That one, she's been fucking hot garbage since she's been in the fucking UFC. So get the fuck out. As far as a contender this week, I'm actually going to go against my gut on this. And I'm gonna say Kelvin Gastelum. To be honest, I think he looks the best right now that he's looked in fucking years. And I'm not talking about just his last fight out. His last fight out, he looked solid. Granted, not the hardest opponent in Chris Curtis, but Chris Curtis is definitely a tough opponent. He's definitely not a walk in the park for anybody. But looking at him slimming down now at the welterweight, he looks a lot fucking better. He can't go back up. He'll fucking get destroyed some more. Staying right here in welterweight is the best thing for him. And coming into a Sean Brady who's coming off his first fucking pro loss, that's a big tough task. But I think Calvin might have it in him. But as a fight as a whole, I like that fight as a whole. I think there might be fireworks there. So I'm gonna lump that whole fight into the contender section there. Now, as far as about that they can get rid of, I'm gonna say it: Misha Tate and Julia Vida. Just scrap that fucking fight. I love Cupcake as much as the next guy. Look, you gave me a chance. Yeah, I'd be there. But she's fucking done. Give her credit where credit is due. Yes, at one point she was the women's champ in the UFC. That can never be taken away from her. It's time for her to do the whole ride off into the sunset thing. And when you're talking in your fucking interviews that any of my next fights could be my last, that tells me your heart's not in it anymore. If your heart's not in it in this sport, you don't need to be in it. Because that's a bad way to end up in a really shitty situation. You end up punch drunk, permanently fucking scarred for life. Look, she's got fucking kids. She's a fucking mom, for Christ's sakes. Don't fuck up your life to be able to take care of your kids because you don't know when to hang them up. Time to hang them up. And I'm not even going to mention Julia because she's not worth the fucking time. But that fight as a whole, I think it should be scrapped. To be honest, they should be scrapping Misha Tate from the fucking roster, but they won't because of the name, knowing that she is a former champ. And to be honest, not bad to look at. Easy on the eyes. So yeah, it's an easy sell for people to fucking watch. But still, scrap the whole fucking thing. Not worth it. Should not be in the premier prelim spot. To be honest, God, this is going to hurt to say this. I would rather see Jakar Close and Joe Solecki as the premier prelim. Fuck that. God damn it. That tastes terrible coming out of my mouth. Considering that fight could get scrapped too, and I wouldn't be mad about it. But yeah, that's where I'm at this week. But as far as overall, my opinion, the most exciting fight is definitely going to end up being Jalen Turner and Bobby Green. I really think that that's going to be the highlight of the fucking evening.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. We'll definitely talk more about that in a minute. I've got to say, overall, this is one of the better fight night cards we've seen from the UFC. And considering, like we talked about pre-show, there are 3 UFC cards left in the year. One this weekend, one next weekend, and one then the UFC pay-per-view to end out the year on the 16th. So there's only 3 more cards. And of those 3, this ain't too fucking shabby. That being said, it ain't fucking perfect either. Far from it. Ironic that TJ should mention that because my can selection for this particular card is the entire goddamn fight of Drakkar Klose versus Joe Solecki. I don't need to see that shit now. I don't need to see that shit the rest of this year. I don't need to ever see that goddamn fight. That has 0 divisional implications. It has 0 ramifications for either of them, even with a good win. And it has 0 place on a card that already has good fights. Put that shit somewhere in the fucking early prelims on the fucking pay-per-view where no one's genuinely going to give a shit. Or stick it next weekend where they're sticking all the other fights that can get hopped up somewhere in the end of the fucking year. I don't need any of that shit. Don't need any fucking part of it. That being said, though, on the contender side, I also have a whole fucking fight that I'm throwing in there. And that Figgy goddamn Smalls is moving to bantamweight, motherfuckers. I don't understand how this has not been the fucking lead headline going into this goddamn card for a month now. The dude that decimated the 125-pound division and made it look easy. Like a little Cambodian Rambo is now moving up in weight class to cut less weight. And we already know the power that motherfucker had at 25 is gonna transfer to fucking 35 against Rob goddamn Font, the New England Cartel's most granite chin motherfucker, the walk-through fireman himself. This fight has everything that needs to be the main event Saturday night. And somehow they don't even have it as the fucking co. That's fire. Everything about that fucking fight is fire. Even if it's quote unquote bad as a fight, it's still going to be great to fucking watch. So that, yeah, I'm all in for that shit.
I completely fucking agree with the both of you. You got plenty of fucking cans, plenty of contenders. And then, like you guys said, fucking definitely some good fights. The co-main event, Bobby Green.
Also, my mouth still tastes like shit from saying that earlier.
Oh. But yeah, I agree with both of you guys on that. And appreciate you boys. That's all for me this week.
Good shit. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. So that'll bring us to the point where in most podcasts, you'd be getting some bullshit B-roll fucking ad for some product that no one on the fucking show uses, a company that doesn't give a fuck about the podcast. And that's not how we fucking roll around here. The I'm No Joe podcast is brought to you by viewers like you. Patreon.com/I'm No Joe. For as little as $1 a month, you will get your name as a thank you on the end of every fucking broadcast that goes out on this damn channel, as well as unfettered access to behind the scenes, unaired, and literally unairable content. Shit that actually got us kicked off of OnlyFans now is available for your consumption for as little as $1 a month. Also helps us do what we do. Don't have a buck? No sweat. We do this for free. Anyways, you can come consume it just the same. We just appreciate you coming and hanging out. That being said, this would be the only segment on the podcast that does require its own individual disclaimer. So, if you will, Tapology.com does not in any way, shape, or form sponsor, support, or endorse the I'm No Joe podcast. Yet. That being said, Tapology.com does offer you the ability to go onto their site, create a free account, and make fantasy-style fight picks just like we do here on the show. They even let you make groups on there, so we jumped on and we did that. We made a group called I'm No Bookie, group 965, however you need to find it. It is open to the public. You are more than welcome to make yourself an account, join the group, let us know who the fuck we are so you can hold you accountable, and then we can put your picks right there with ours in a little segment we like to call Tapology with TJ.
All right, bear with me here. If I have to fucking mute myself up for a moment, it's because of the wonderful cold my kid gave me. Anyhow, we're gonna jump right into this because I'm gonna kind of breeze through this week for good reasons. I don't know how long my throat's gonna hold out here. So going all the way back to November 18th, Saturday, UFC Fight Night, the Bear Jew and Allen. The winner of the evening, I would say to the surprise of no one, but I am surprised because I have this feeling eventually she's gonna have to fall off. But fucking Donna coming in hot, 10 out of 14 picks correct, 650 points. She's been on fucking fire this whole fucking year. Like, to be honest, I want somebody to go over there and just cripple her fingers up so she can't make her picks, so somebody else gets a chance at the top spot. I think there was definitely something going on in the water over there as well at their house, because in the second spot was Don. 9 out of fucking 14, one pick behind the wife there. Don, how's it feel to be doing dishes the last 2 weeks, especially with Thanksgiving in there?
Sounds like he got most of his picks down over her shoulder before she realized he was looking.
Apparently. Unfortunately, somebody forgot to make their picks last week, which was Vindal, or 2 weeks ago, which would have been Vindal. So, taking his place, like the righteous brother he is, Christian taking that trip over your dick spot. Fucking, and not bad though. 8 out of 14 correct, well north of the 500 mark. But you know, he had to take one for the team. Look, that's what brothers are for. You take one for your brother sometime. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the fucking nail. Sometimes you're the steamroller who rolls over your own dick.
Yep.
Good job, Christian.
Yeah, I had to. I mean, he fucking broke his phone at work and shit, So he wasn't able to make picks. By the time I got him a new phone, it was too fucking late. So
Yeah,
yeah, air
that's where you
quotes.
say broken phone.
No, he learned a good lesson. Don't carry your phone on you in a grow facility when you clean the gutters and shit in a grow room. It's not the wisest idea.
Nah, shit comes off and falls off while you're on the ladder. That's all she wrote. No. Now, for those of you who aren't aware and didn't catch the initial run into this segment, come over to Tapology, make yourself an account. Join I'm No Bookie, or Group 965 as it were. Let us know who you are. We will talk shit about you, pat you on the back when you do well. And, it's all in good fun. Nobody really wins anything over here except for bragging rights and, well, the ability to say, hey, man, stop running your dick over. Or tripping over your vagina or something along those lines, depending on your anatomy. We'll go that route. So if you haven't, by all means, please join us, Group 965. I'm No Bookie over on Tapology. Now, with all that said, we're going to skip right into this next week talking about odds. And I say this next week, I mean this weekend coming up. What should have been a couple of fights that were supposed to happen are not. So, things have gotten changed around a little bit. But for the most part, the odds didn't change all that much. The only thing that changed massive, well, I can't even say massively, just slightly. Let's start here with Bobby Green and Jalen Turner. Initially, it was Bobby Green and Dan Hooker prior to Dan Hooker re-breaking his arm in the spot that already had a fucking plate in it. Because, that makes complete sense. But, here we are. The initial odds with that fight, Bobby Green was a plus 145 underdog and Dan Hooker at a minus 175 favorite. The odds did not change all that much. They still have Bobby Green as the underdog. Right now, his odds dropped a little bit to a plus 165 to the Tarantula getting a minus 200 favorite. So the way the odds makers were looking at this, the Tarantula is better than Dan Hooker, which I can slightly agree with, although, like I said, it's not far off. But that is what it is. Now, what's a really crazy one here, Davidson Figueiredo and Rob Font. This is not something I thought was the odds would be this way. They basically have it a coin flip. They have Rob Font coming in as a minus 140 favorite and Davidson Figueiredo as a plus 115 underdog. So basically a coin flip. To be honest, I thought the odds might have been flipped around the other way, knowing the kind of power that fucking Davidson Figueiredo has. However, the chin that Rob Font is known for and the willingness to buck and bang, that I think they're pretty close to fucking right there. Now, to talk about some of these odds that are wider, like I normally would, those are just a couple that I did want to highlight because I thought they were well worth the highlight. Most of the fight card is coin flips, but there are a couple that have, I'll say, wider odds, and I'm using air quotes for those of you that listen because, to be honest, they're not that fucking crazy. The main event being Arman Tsarukyan and Beneil Dariush. They have Arman Tsarukyan coming in as a minus 300 favorite over a plus 240 underdog in Beneil Dariush. Those odds may be right. I mean, we did see what Beneil Dariush did to Gamrot. He did knock him down in their fights. I'm just saying. And knowing that Tsarukyan lost to Gamrot, MMA math doesn't work, but you know, it's out there. So I don't know if the odds makers were quite right there. I think they could have been a little closer in the odds, but I see where their heads are at there. Another one that's got a bit of a wider odds here, the Carpenter, Clay Guida, and Joaquin Silva. They have the Carpenter as a plus 260 underdog and Silva as a minus 350 favorite. To be honest, I think they're right on the side of calling Guida the underdog, but I don't think it's that wide because I don't think Silva is that great. And here's where I think they're really fucked up. If you go back and look at Clay Guida's, I think it's last 5 or 6 fights, he's been win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. His last fight was a loss, which means he's due for a win if we're going the back and forth route. I think they might want to tighten those odds up a bit. That might be one where I say, go bet on the Carpenter. I'm not saying he's going to finish Silva, but I think he can definitely outgrind him. That dude has a gas tank for days. You rarely to never see Clay Guida get fucking tired. The dude has some of the best cardio in the fucking MMA world. So, like I said, a little bit crazy ones, but you know, here we are. Now, the one fight none of us really give a shit about, but it's on there. Dustin Solfis and Punahele fucking Soriano, or Punahele, or whatever the Pussy Soriano. There we go. I knew I was mispronouncing that. There was Soriano coming as a minus 300 favorite, and Stolfus coming in as a plus 240 underdog. Guess what? Nobody fucking cares. Moving on. Now, the widest odds I could find on here, and the last one I'm going to talk about, because like I said, everything else is pretty close to coin flip. Rodolfo Violto and Thor Portiria, or however the fuck you say his last goddamn name. They've got Rodolfo coming in as a minus 450 favorite over a plus 333 underdog in Portiria. Seems like kind of wide odds for a guy who's coming off the Contender Series. Don't get me wrong, we've seen what he has done so far, but I don't think he's that great. That minus 450 plus 333. They're pretty wide gaps on a pretty young fucking fighter and when it comes to the UFC. But, you know, odds makers are going to do crazy shit. Now, for the rest of the fights on the card, they're all pretty much coin flips. Nothing too crazy. So, just know, go look at whatever your local place is. Their odds may vary. Everything that I look at is through BetMGM. So know that those may vary. It's not going to be by a lot of points. Most of the odds makers kind of look at one and then kind of adjust theirs accordingly, just so that way everybody's in odds. But feel free. This is a good weekend to make some bets, especially with the fights that are on this card. Some crazy shit could happen. You can make some hellaciously crazy picks and make some money because, to be honest, a lot of these could go either way, even though the odds seem a little bit funky. But one last time, if you haven't, please come over, join us on Tapology, Group 965. I'm no bookie. Let us know who you are. We will write you in or write you off, depending on how well you do. Hope to see you there.
Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated for that. Excuse me. Real quick, before we get into a little bit more of a breakdown of the card here, I do want to give everybody a quick little fight menu for the weekend here because we have all sorts of punchy kicky going on this weekend. So, as is the case more often than not, in a couple hours from now, for all you sun worshipping lizard folk, 6:30 a.m. Central Time, kicking off because it's the other time on the other side of the world over there. Friday night fights 43 from ONE FC. 3 MMA fights, 9 Muay Thai fights, genuine multi-discipline on the same card. It's good shit. Muay Thai and 4-ounce gloves. It's just so fucking fun to watch. Not a lot of names that a lot of casuals are going to recognize, but fun, entertaining fights if you're up that fucking early. I get it if you're not. I fucking won't be. That being said, the UFC itself is going to be kicking off Saturday, or prelims themselves start at 3 p.m. Central Time. Main card is expected to kick off around 6 p.m. Central Time. But in the meanwhile, BKFC 56 with the quote unquote King of Violence belt on the line in the main event kicks off at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time Saturday night. And then, not to be outdone, the legitimate boxers are stepping in late Saturday night. That card kicks off at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Ryan Garcia stepping back in after a very fucking tough to handle, what a lot of people are saying is one of the biggest shocks in the boxing world in recent memory. Ryan Davis jumped to another fucking training camp trying to get back on the bike and trying to build that steam back up because he lost a lot of it in that fucking Tank Davis fight. Going to be interesting to see what he can do against Oscar Duarte. Duarte is a bad motherfucker in his own right. So there's going to be plenty of good boxing and some bare knuckle to watch Saturday after the after the UFC card is over. That being said, though, in terms of the UFC's card this weekend, there's a couple things, like we said, not the best card in the world, but far from the shit show we have seen in other fight nights from the UFC. But there's a couple here that I want to take a moment to talk about that I don't feel are getting enough shine or have an interesting aspect to them. The first one, I'm curious what you gentlemen think. We're going strictly hypothetical here on the what if type thing. What if Davison Figueiredo shows up Saturday night and just fucking levels Rob Font? How many fights do we really think they're going to make him go through before they give him a title shot?
I'll run with this one. If he absolutely levels him, like first round, knocks him out, fucking completely just fucking leaves him just laying in the mat, I say they make him have 2 more fights. You're fighting the number 8 guy. They're going to expect the fight in the top 5 and then 1 for title contention. So I figure it would take him 3 in total to get to a champ fight, including this one. But I figured, about that 3rd fight after this would be the title fight if he continues to steamroll. And even if he doesn't steamroll the next guy, he'll still get that next title contention spot.
Yeah.
So I still think it's 2 more fights after that and then a title shot. Don't get me wrong. The UFC has been doing some crazy shit, which is why we have Sean Strickland as a fucking champ right now. So it could, in theory, be this and bam, title shot. Doubtful, but it's a possibility.
What do you think, Christian?
one are we on again?
Rob Font,
Least-
Figueiredo.
All right. I think Font's got a good chance to fucking make this really difficult for Figueiredo, but I like Figueiredo's chance to power, man. Like you said earlier on the contender segment for me, Figueiredo's gonna fucking translate that. He doesn't have to cut that same amount of weight. And Rob Font with that powerful chin, I think this could be one of the fights of the night and shit. And I'm excited to see how, Font holds up because I think Figueiredo is going to have just as good a boxing as Font, and it's going to be a hell of a fucking exciting fight. And we know he's going to clip him. It's just Font stay in there. He looked pretty rough in his last fight against Corey Sandhagen, but Corey was just kind of holding him down to the ground. I don't see that same kind of fight here, but we also know Figueiredo could do that if he wanted to. He could try to get it down to the ground and work some jiu-jitsu, but I feel like we're just going to see a stand-up striking battle. I honestly think we're going to see Figueiredo maybe not put him out, but I expect him to get the win. I figure Figueiredo's going to look pretty fucking good here and start climbing his way up. Like TJ said, maybe not like an automatic title shot after the fact, but definitely top fucking contender after this. And you would hope that next year he's maybe getting a title shot against O'Malley or fucking Cheeto, because either of those fights would be fun as hell. It'd be fun as hell to see Figueiredo get to whoop O'Malley's ass, and if Cheeto and Figueiredo got to fight, this is just a hell of a fight. Just thinking about that right now, it'd be fun as fuck. So I'm excited for it. A lot of these fights are going to be pretty exciting this weekend, but this is probably one of the more exciting ones.
I agree. I think you guys are both right on. I think I would like to say that a good performance this weekend jumps the line, but realistically, bantamweight is still a bit of a logjam right now. There's a lot of guys who quote unquote deserve a shot. At the same time, though, with a good performance against Rob Font, he could end up jumping a lot of the line, I feel like. I think TJ is pretty right on there. I think he comes out and does work this weekend, puts Font away in a notable fashion real quick. I think he gets a top 5 guy next, and I don't know. I think we could see Figgy Smalls fighting for the bantamweight title in 2024 in less than 3 fights. It's fucking crazy to say, but it's a real possibility. So,
the one fight I would like him to have if he comes out and just absolutely decimates Font, I want to see him fight Merab. I think that would be a fucking hell of a banger.
I think that could be real interesting as well. That could be his eliminator fight too.
Yeah, although to be honest, if O'Malley loses against Cheeto, I think that's where they finally give Merab his shot. Because from all of the news that we've seen, Sterling is planning on changing weight divisions, going up. He thinks he's gonna go in there and get himself a Max Holloway as a first fight. Get the fuck out of here. You'll get fucking killed.
Yeah, ironically, and again, I'm very open. I'm a petty bitch when it comes to shit like this. That's the one thing that's absolutely ludicrous that I did actually kind of want to see come true. This is one of those situations. I was actually talking about this with somebody yesterday. We are currently in the era of nobody wants to stay in their own fucking division anymore. Dricus du Plessis said yesterday that if he beats Sean Strickland, his immediate first thought is moving up and challenging for the other belt. He doesn't even want to defend one fucking time. Aljo's really so convinced that he can do 45, not only just do 45, but do it so well, he could handle the likes of a Max Holloway for a fucking divisional debut. Let him have it. Careful what you wish for, because you just might fucking get it. I would love for him to fuck around and find out exactly how bad of a choice that was. I don't think they're gonna, though. So, that being said, it's short notice, but it is the co-main. And I feel like Jalen Turner versus Bobby Green is getting talked about more because it's a short notice fight than for what the fight actually means. Jalen Turner's coming in off of 2 very bad losing skid, not good losses. And he took this on short notice and basically said in the press day yesterday that he was essentially forced to take this fight. He didn't want to. He had no choice career-wise. Basically, that the UFC said without saying, if you don't take this, we're just going to fucking cut you now. Even then, a short notice fucking fight against Bobby Green is not a good way to go. His head is clearly not in a good fucking place right now. Is this going to be the last time we see Jalen Turner or Bobby Green styles on him Saturday?
I think it's a possibility, especially knowing the way that he said he basically was forced into this. And look, I'm going to say part of that was probably the UFC forcing him into it. The other part of that is his brain going, fuck, I need to take this fight to stay relevant after my 2 fight skid. I get that. 100% behind you on that one. You fucking, who was it? He lost to Matus Gamrot. And then fucking lost a decision to what should have been Bobby Green's fucking opponent in Dan Hooker.
Hard fight, too.
It was a hell of a fight, yeah. So, to be honest, he's right. He does need to take this fight. I don't think it was just the UFC pushing the button. I think part of that was his own mentality, which, if that's the case, that's probably a good thing, because that means you're in the right fucking mindset to go, hey, I need to shit or get off the pot.
Right.
However, I'm leaning more towards the UFC going, hey, man, TikTok, that contract talks are coming up. Unless you want to play ball here, we're not going to play ball with you. However, don't get me wrong, if they want to let him go, I'm sure PFL would have no problem picking him up without a shadow of a fucking doubt.
Yeah.
Now, if Bobby Green comes and styles on him, he's probably going to get cut. Now, taking this on a short notice, if he puts up a hell of a fight and still loses, that will increase his fucking his fold for the UFC of thanks for being a company guy. Yeah, we're going to give you a couple more fights to try to get your shit straight. If he comes in on short notice and just decimates Bobby Green, that looks really good on Turner. That's a nice turnaround. Bobby Green is not a fucking easy fight for anybody, especially with how uncharacteristic and weird his fighting style is. Hands down, shots coming from weird angles. But the one thing Turner will have on him is going to have reach for fucking days, as he is a long fighter. But the other part of this, I think where Turner has the best advantage, I don't think Bobby's fucking head is in this fully, because he's worried about getting into fucking verbal altercations with Tsarukyan. Don't be dumb. When your head's not in the fight you have in front of you, that's when you tend to get your ass kicked. And then at that point, you don't have shit to say to Tsarukyan either. You might say it on the street, because look, as much as we love to see Bobby Green and listen to him, he's a dude from the street. He will find that motherfucker in the street. He is like Jorge Masvidal. He doesn't give a shit if you're in the cage or not. Be careful what you wish for. Arman Tsarukyan, you might be Armenian, but that doesn't mean that you can't catch these fucking American hands. So, on this one, I think the fight has a lot of fucking potential, barring Bobby Green is in the right spot and Jalen Turner is in the right spot. For a co-main event, I think they could have switched it and put it as the people's co-main event, and it would have been a little bit better. But, you know, the UFC likes to do that whole weight class thing once they've already got a main fucking fight or a main event set. Everything else behind it leading up to it is generally by weight class and rankings. So, unfortunately, they're ranked fighters, and the bantamweight fighters are ranked below them. So, they did the whole fucking thing there. But yeah, as far as this could be the last we see of Jalen Turner, though, especially if he shits the bed here. If he absolutely shits the bed, doesn't show up, he's out. But if he puts on a good performance and loses, we'll see him again. But like I said, Bobby Green's head's not there either, so at least I don't think it is. If you have time to be running your mouth against the guy who's in the fucking main event, You might be in the wrong fucking area, dude. You should be eyes on the fucking prize. We say it time and time again. Betting this weekend, my money's going on Turner. Excuse me.
What do you think, Christian?
So I mean, I agree with TJ. I feel like there's a chance if the UFC did try to kind of push Turner into this, like, hey, we're not going to give you any other fucking fights, kind of shit, if you don't take this one. But I kind of agree with what TJ said. I feel like it was more so his mentality because of what he said, like, kind of fucked him up or whatever. His fight with Dan, like, because he's a good-hearted dude. I want to know if that's just bullshit, and like if he's just trying to put on a front too, like, and he cares or whatever. You know, all fighters are kind of crazy fucks, but you know, maybe at the end of the day, it did fuck with him. He said that, you know, he took that time for his mental state and shit. I feel like he's in a better state taking this fight on short notice. He kind of said no at first, but I don't feel like Jalen's going to get cut. I feel like this could be fight of the night. You know, even if he loses, we've seen a lot of dudes have a losing streak and they get to keep around. I mean, fucking Tony Ferguson, you know, Sam Alvey, you know. You see some really BJ Penn. You see some really horrible fucking losing streaks, and motherfuckers still get to stick around because of what they did previously. So that's kind of how I see it. Jalen's still a young kid, and he has been in the top 10 for the past couple of years and shit. He's still a top 15 ranked fighter, so he just get thrown back down into the shitter. He loses this one. You're fighting somebody outside the ranks, and you got to work your way back up big time. It's like digging yourself a deep grave. But I don't fully feel like he's going to get cut, but I also don't feel like he's going to win this weekend. It'd be cool for him, like TJ said. It'd be really good for him to beat Bobby Green, but I feel like Bobby's just on a run right now. Like, dude's fucking getting towards the end of his career, and you know, like he was saying during media day this week, like he's got goals, he's got plans. He's one of those guys. He's not worried about a championship. He just wants to keep having as many fun, like, fight of the night kind of fights. Just getting into fucking wars with dudes and putting on exciting fights for the fans, adding to his legacy. You know, it was badass shit to me. I'm excited as hell for the fight. I think it can be a back and forth, you know, Jalen having the length and shit. But I feel like his length isn't going to help him too much just because of what TJ mentioned as well. The weird striking, just weird style that Bobby has, and Jalen hasn't had a training camp to train for it. At short notice, I just feel like it's going to get to him with that. You didn't have time to train for the kind of dude that Bobby Green is, and he's been training, getting ready for a fight, so he's going to be on point. He's going to be sharp, technical, like he always fucking is. Bobby's always a fantastic boxer, always looking for the counters. So I feel like we could get a 3-round war fight of the night here. Bobby Green's going to come out on top. I don't see Jalen Turner getting cut, but dude's definitely been on a fucking downward spiral. And I keep saying that he's a young kid. He's got a lot of potential, and I think he's got a bright future. But in order to do that, he's got to do what TJ said. He's got to get that turnaround going. Bobby Green's a hell of a name, and Bobby's been looking great. Got himself in the rankings now, so it'd be a fantastic fucking thing for Jalen. Short notice, get that win. It's gonna be tough for him though. He's gonna have to go through a war just like he did with Dan to get it done. But so you always hope for as a fan too, right?
The way you put that makes me think of one thing. So Turner needs a turnaround, which means his walkout music this weekend should be something like along the lines of "Turn around." I'm just saying, it all fits.
The ironic bit is that's actually more likely to be a Bobby Green walkout song than it would be Jalen Turner, and he'd be dancing to it.
Probably.
Oh shit, fucking Bobby. But that being said, before we wrap things up around here, I am curious a little bit. I think there's a couple different ways this main event could play out, but what I'm really curious on you gentlemen's opinion here: who has the most to lose in this main event? Because with a win, either one of them becomes the next number one contender, essentially, in an already crazy logjam division. But who loses the most with a bad loss on Saturday?
My opinion, at this point in his career, it's been Neil Dariush, fucking hands down. He just lost his last fight out and didn't just lose, he got knocked the fuck out by the man who was supposed to be fighting for the title here, but decided he's gonna fucking cut himself before fight. So yeah, this puts Beneil in a real hard spot. If he doesn't win this fight, his chances of ever getting a title shot again, I think, are shot. And I like Beneil. The dude's a family man. He's honestly just seems like an honestly all around nice individual. The kind of person you want to see do well in MMA. However, the flip side to that is he's a nice fucking guy. Nice fucking guys in this sport don't always do so well. We've seen it time and time again. Look at Cowboy. Cowboy was a great fighter. Nice guy. Never got the fucking title. Probably one of the greatest fighters of all time to never get a fucking title.
Yeah, one of them for sure.
Arman Tsarukyan, his last loss out was against Mateusz Gamrot. He's on back-to-back 2-fight win streak. Neil coming off a loss. Arman really needs this one. Because Beneil did go and beat Mateusz after fucking Tsarukyan lost to him. So I think what needs to happen here for Arman's sake is he needs this dub, because if he fucking loses to Beneil, they're going to look at him and go, guess what? You're going to be a gatekeeper for the top 10. Because that's where you fall if you lose to Beneil at this point. Beneil, he falls down to probably that same fucking realm or worse, because he's expected to win fights like this, even though they don't have him listed as the favorite when it comes to the betting odds this week. To be honest, I think the fall is a lot worse for Beneil than it is for Tsarukyan, though. A lot fucking worse. Because he's getting up there in age. There's not a lot of time left on that clock. And every time we see him, he gets grayer and grayer. It's not too many times you see your grandpa fighting for a fucking title. There are a few exceptions to that policy, but you're not Randy fucking Coleman or anything like that, where the old days of MMA. That shit doesn't translate anymore.
What do you think, Christian? Who's got more to lose this weekend?
It's tough. It's kind of like what TJ was saying. Both of them, I feel like, equally have the same amount to lose, because whoever loses is going to wind up being like the gatekeeper kind of shit for the division right now. Beneil has been in that top 5 situation where Tsarukyan's been like hanging right around the top 10. So Tsarukyan would finally get jumped up, get himself a big fight if he wins this one. Like, this is his first big fight, really, right? In all truthfulness, that Gamrot fight was a good fight, but it was just top 10. Like, this pushes him to real contention if he beats Beneil. But yeah, I think whoever loses, it's equally just as bad. But probably a little bit more for Beneil, because he is towards the tail end. And like TJ said, you lose this, it's kind of your last shot. Like, you don't win this fight, you're not getting another chance at the title, no matter what you do. It's just, so I feel like that's tougher. Tsarukyan's still younger, so he loses, maybe he can still work his way back up. But still, whoever loses gets put in that gatekeeper spot. I do feel like the fight's going to be exciting. Like, it reminds me of last year when Gamrot and Tsarukyan fought. Like, that pace was fucking crazy. The fight was insane. Even though it was real grappling heavy, there was never really a dull or boring moment of that fucking fight. It was like a fight of the night kind of fight. I feel like we can see the same thing. Even though Dariush is a little bit older, he's got a hell of a gas tank. The dude's pretty well rounded. So, like, I think it's going to be a pretty fucking exciting fight. Whoever comes out on top, they're going to get themselves a top 5 fight. Whoever loses, fighting towards the bottom. So there's a lot to lose for both, but I do feel like it's worse for Dariush because he's on the older side of things, and after losing to fucking Oliveira and getting knocked out by him, he really needs to fucking bounce back. Or he's never gonna have that chance. It's gonna be tough the way the lightweight division goes. Even if he fucking wins, it's gonna be tough because who the hell is he gonna get in the top 5? Like he's gonna have to keep fighting down for a while and just hope that the UFC finally picks him for the next title shot when they run out of other options. I don't think Justin Gaethje's going to fucking fight Beneil, and we know Dustin Poirier's not going to fucking fight him. So there's no one else that he can really go after. You just have to get lucky and win a couple fights against these guys trying to work their way up and hope that Islam's run out of guys and he gets to be the next one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'd like to say that Tsarukyan has more to lose here just because coming off that fucking Gamrot ass whooping, getting handled by Benny is not going to be good. But at the same time, Dariush has spent so much of his fucking career just hovering right around that fucking top 5, top 3 fucking spot, never getting that fucking shot. And then they finally gave him Oliveira as an almost, and he got fucking worked. I think you guys are right. I think if he loses Saturday, I think it's pretty much over. There's no path for him to get back anywhere near title contention. And I think the worst part is that even realistically, with a great win Saturday, he's still got a lot more work than most of the guys in the division. But I think it's going to be a good one. I think you guys are both right there. I think it's going to be a damn good fight. I think we got a pretty good overall card Saturday for the UFC, but that is all we have got for this particular episode. So again, if you guys are catching this in the all audio format, you might not be aware that we do this live pretty much every Thursday night. There's a fight to talk about on the weekend over on youtube.com/I'mNoJoe, 9:30 p.m. ish Central Standard Time. If you can make it, we'd appreciate it. If not, no sweat, because this also comes out a week after we go live. An all audio format over on anchor.fm/I'mNoJoe. You could pick it up to your podcast consumption platform of choice. The only thing I do ask is that after you're following us, you're listening, you're watching, you like what you do, or excuse me, you like what we do, you like what you see, you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure your notifications are turned on so you don't miss any of these episodes. But on the other side of that important coin, if you don't like what we get up to around here, first and foremost, what the fuck are you still doing this deep into a podcast you didn't enjoy? Just give us a thumbs down and go fuck yourself. We won't even dispute it. That being said, when we wrap up around here, that's not the end of the fun, because tomorrow morning and pretty much every Friday morning, that fella right over there and his hetero life mate wrap out the Slow Bake and Contemplate podcast for you over there on Spreaker.com. Links down in the description for their podcast as well as their socials, and the link to their very own channel on the I'm No Joke Discord server. All the links for all that goodness down in the description.
Appreciate you, brother. Work's fucking been tough. We've fucking been missing some podcasts lately, been inconsistent. But I'm gonna fucking make sure we got it up tomorrow morning this week. Appreciate the shout out. Shit don't fucking stop. Once we get back around the next week, you gotta fucking check out Wednesday night, brother TJ's fucking channel, Golf T Vapes on YouTube. Hop into the foggy fairway around 9:30 every fucking Wednesday night and you chill, learn some fucking vape recipes. If you're into the vapes, if you vape yourself, you can learn some tips, some tricks, some cool recipes and mixes. Just chill and have some fun, show the brother some love every Wednesday night.
Thank you, sir. There will be a Wednesday night show, barring I'm not still fucking sick next week. But now, for those of you who don't know, if you didn't catch it, there was a little foreshadowing at the beginning of the show. Demeter does actually more than just this. In fact, he does many things. So if you go below, there's a little link down there, Linktree / Demeter does many things, or you can also use Linktree / I'm No Joe, which will take you to all of the many things that the meter does do. In case you are wondering what those are the things that the meter does do, just go click the links and find out. It's going to be well worth your time. Go down that fucking rabbit hole. It's a fun one, let me tell you what.
Indeed. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. That being said, that is all we've got for this particular episode. So until next time, boys and girls, don't let ignorance stop you. You can root for anything. Shout out to Bryce Meredith and Archie Colgan. I see you two fuckers stalking my IG.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. How do I say goodbye to what we had? The good times that made us laugh.